This is the Uptick Newswire Stock Day podcast, sponsored by InvestorsHangout.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube to stay up to date on penny stock news and interviews, public information on OTC, pink sheets, and microcap stocks from around the world, with your host, Everett Jolly.
On today's show, we have a brand new guest and a brand new company. And I tell you what, they came on my radar about 3 or 4 months ago, and they are blowing it up. And you might want to take a look at this company. It's called First Cobalt Corp. Well, they trade on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol FCC. They also trade down here in the States on the OTC market. That's the OTCQB, ticker symbol FTSSF. And with us today is the president and CEO, Trent Mell. Trent, welcome to the show, and I appreciate you coming on it.
Yeah, so do I. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You know, give my listeners a little bit about statement of who you guys are and what you do.
Yeah, we're a new company, basically trying to satiate a revolution that's going on in mobility, focused on the lithium-ion batteries. So this is a bit of a Tesla story. 2-3 years ago, everybody was talking about the need for more lithium. And over the past year and a half, the focus increasingly has turned towards cobalt. Cobalt's become an increasingly important commodity in the production of lithium-ion batteries, and the world is suddenly realizing that the supply is well short of what the demands are, even not just today, but as penetration rates increase. So we put our company together 9 months ago, a bunch of experienced miners going into kind of a startup phase, and we've started to aggregate some of the best cobalt assets in the world for discovery of new mines and future production.
You know, what makes your company so special from all the other different cobalt companies up there in northern Canada?
Yeah, one is the scale. We quickly realized that if you're going to be in this space, you've got to have liquidity in the markets for investors. And then, of course, as you get bigger, the retail gets supplemented by the big institutional investors. All that means you can then raise more money. And that allows you, in turn, once you're big in the market, you can get big in the field as well and grow your asset base. So we've got a team of very experienced financiers and capital markets people, and we brought together an operating team, people that have worked in big global mining houses around the world, and put that together in the exploration scene to try to quickly wrap up some of the better assets and find a pathway to production. And we did that by going to what I believe is the most prospective cobalt exploration camp in the world outside of the Congo, where most of the cobalt is produced today, in a town actually called Cobalt, Ontario, once the world's biggest silver camp. It's been ignored for some 40 or 50 years, and we're going back and looking at all the cobalt that wasn't mined historically with a view to focusing on that commodity. You know,
I always tell my listeners, if you're going to invest in mining companies, first of all, you got to have the right team and the right property. You guys have both of those. Can you give my listeners a little bit of update and maybe introduce your team to them?
Sure. So as a CEO, I come in, originally I'm an M&A guy. I was a securities lawyer for a short time, and then I got into the gold space by joining the world's biggest gold mining company, Barrick. And I worked there and then got the bug, and I stuck around and did less law and more business stuff, and I went to Sherritt Nickel and a few other plays. I then ran a junior company, and it's got a mine now that's ready to be built, and then came here and deliberately put together a team of operators. So Dr. Frank Santaguida is our head of exploration. He spent 25 years around the world with Falcon Bridge and then First Quantum. So he's lived in Africa and worked in Australia, Europe, and North America. And then the other senior hire, Peter Campbell, our engineer, he's got about 35 years experience, most of that with big company. So Strata, which prior to that was also Falcon Bridge. And then he spent a little bit of time on the south side as an analyst. And overlaid on top of that, we got a great crew of geologists in the field. And then our board that we put together has got two very well-known capital market people, Bob Cross and Paul Matisic. Both of these gentlemen have distinguished themselves over their career with some really big wins for shareholders. So they're not afraid to sell assets when the market says it's time to sell, or build them out. Bob is chairman and founder of B2 Gold, $4.5 billion market cap. But both have done some top of the market transactions, and I think it signals that we got a team that can go out, discover, build, and operate. But we've got a board that's prepared to do the right thing and find those wins when the market hits a peak.
You know, you guys are in the right space at the right time. A lot of people don't know this, and a lot of people don't follow it, but Cobalt prices doubled over this last year. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, and that comes back to the focus on electric vehicles. You got a 1% global penetration rate for EVs, and this is not just a Tesla story anymore. Every auto company in the planet has shifted their R&D entirely away from diesel and increasingly away from the combustion engine in totality towards electric vehicles. And so by 2020 through 2025, every one of them will have several, if not dozen or more of their own electric vehicle models on the road. And what that means is you go from 1% to a 10%, 20%, 30% penetration rate. There's just not enough cobalt in the world to satiate that. We've got a deficit starting this year, projected to continue until certainly 2025. And when you look at where the big cobalt production is, it's in the Congo and the DRC. And you've got legacy issues there around corruption. You've got an issue of an election that was supposed to be held a year and a half ago. And even some of the bigger players in the country, the Chinese, are now saying, we need to mitigate our risk and start looking for opportunities outside the country. Where do you go? And that leads you, frankly, when you look at where cobalt's mined today, it's copper mines and it's nickel mines. So it's hard to find a pure play, if you will, cobalt operation. And that's where we come into focus. We got our hands on some assets, and we're trying to satisfy that basically that shortage in the market today.
We're highlighting First Cobalt Corp. They trade on the TSX Venture, if you will, ticker symbol FCC. They also trade on the OTCQB, ticker symbol FTSSF. And with us today is the president and CEO, Trent Mell. Trent, your stock has been on fire, I think up over 80% in the last 5 or 6 sessions. So what's up with First Cobalt? Do you think we're at the top here? I know it's hard for you to interject that. Where do we go from here?
Yeah. I think what's happened, we're just completing a 3-way merger. So part of our scaling up was to bring together 3 companies. So we're getting rid of 2 G&As, 2 management teams, and the new company will revolve around my current team. So you're saving money at the top in the C-suite, if you will. It's a pretty modest C-suite because I don't even take a salary, but we're basically trying to put all this land together in Canada and give people a bigger platform. And so all of this came together, creating what is now the world's largest exploration company for the cobalt space in the world. Some paperwork, so the lawyers have got to finalize everything between now and Friday. But when that's done, we are the largest by far, and I think the market has taken notice of that, and they see the scale, and they like what they're seeing. And then on top of that, you got a bunch of stuff going on in the market. You've got the likes of BMW and Volkswagen that are scouring the world trying to secure cobalt for their future electric vehicle needs, and they've been unable to do so. And then you've got some bad news out of the DRC, some corruption and a mine that got shut down just today. And then lastly, you've got issues at the LME in London where you had some, we'll call it dirty cobalt produced using child labor out of the Congo that was shipped into LME warehouses, and it taints the whole inventory there. And so if you're Apple or Tesla or Samsung and you want to represent to your consumers that you've got clean cobalt and everything is done above board without child labor, you can no longer do that buying LME cobalt. And that just sent everything on fire, particularly our stock. So I don't think we're done. I think there's a lot of news still to happen around the story, and we've got enough on the go, frankly, and another few things to get out into the public. I think that'll keep the interest on FCC.
A lot of mining companies that are kind of in your space, and maybe not even in your space, that do essays or a 43101, they're not really drilling right now. But you guys, on the other hand, you guys are at 4 mines and drilling. Can you bring us up to speed on those? Yeah,
I mean, part of the rationale here for our team is it's a hot market, and what investors want is they want an answer.
That's right.
They want to know, have you got something, and if you do, how big is it, and how fast can you put it into production? And so that's the benefit of an experienced team. We know what has to be done. We're not doing everything in sequence. We're doing a lot of our work in tandem. So that means early stage compilation work alongside drilling, alongside metallurgical work, and frankly, knowing what it is, what the end state looks like, so that we can go out and look for just that. And so we've got a team of 5 people and a flurry of consultants working with us in the field. And the news flow is constant. We've got a couple of press releases a week updating the market and our activities, everything from early surface mapping to drilling, geophysics, to metallurgical or mineralogical work to try to understand what a processing facility would look like for this kind of mineral.
A lot of my listeners don't understand the different grades of cobalt. You have a mine up there, I believe it's called Silver Banner Mine, and you guys discovered some high-grade cobalt. Can you bring us up to fruition on there and bring us up to speed of what's going on with that?
Sure. So as I mentioned, a lot of the cobalt is produced as byproduct of copper mines in particular out of the Congo. And so, if you look in the DRC, the grades of cobalt you would get per ton of material is about a 0.3 or 0.4% cobalt per every ton. In our camp, we're seeing some high-grade samples that are grading several percent.
Wow.
So we're getting 1s and 3s. We even had an old mine called Caswell, which was basically considered a failed silver mine because it had a lot of cobalt, not a lot of silver. we got a 9%, 9.44% cobalt grade. So these are not necessarily representative of the mine. These are samples, but these are really high grade, and it just tells you where you got to go out and do more work and do more drilling to try to delineate something that could be economic. But when you start with grades that are that impressive, what it means to me is it warrants kind of stepping out and trying to find big open pits. And the idea in the past was you would have these small little narrow vein underground mines, but in modern times you're better off taking it all at a lower grade and often more effective. So if you start with some high grade samples, it just gives you a bigger target to shoot from.
I don't know if you saw this in the Wall Street Journal about 2 or 3 months ago, but China put out a press release, if you will, saying by 2025, 70% of all the cars on the road are going to be electric. Cobalt is tied to electric vehicles. So what do you see over the coming years? Is supplies going to meet demand, or is demand going to outgo supplies?
Yeah, I've got kind of a 5-year horizon. I think we've got 5 years ahead of us to, delineate something. And look, if we're wildly successful, somebody will take us out well before that, which is fine. But, if you look at the time from a lab to putting a vehicle on the road, it's 5 to 7 years, 8 years, some would say. So the battery chemistry is set. And as penetration rates continue, China's now at 2%, and they're frankly leading the world. I think the demand in cobalt is going to be quite strong. They're trying to substitute a little bit less cobalt, a little more nickel, which frankly is probably necessary, just given the shortage of cobalt out there. But you can't get away from cobalt entirely. It brings power and performance and stability to a battery, and so it's always going to be there until they come up with a new technology. But frankly, in terms of an investment horizon, I think there's nothing to worry about for the foreseeable future.
If my listeners wanted to get involved in cobalt, you guys are probably the biggest pure play in cobalt, yes?
I think we are certainly a pure play explorer developer, yeah, because if you were trying to get exposure through the producers, you're looking at the likes of Sherritt Nickel, Glencore, China Moly, and Valley, and all those are diversified metal producers. So you don't get the kind of torque that you would by investing in a pure play cobalt name. And in the case of our company, it's actually a very, very liquid name. So it's frankly quite easy to get in and out of. Although if your investors get out, I hope they come back in. But but it is very liquid, and I think that's what we're trying to provide to investors is a comfort that they can play the market and play cobalt to their heart's content and not feel trapped in a small little illiquid junior.
The listeners that are listening to this program, why should they go out there and buy your stock?
Well, I think I mentioned earlier I don't take a salary. I mean, my motivations, my interests are aligned with those of investors. This is not a lifestyle company, and I'm not in it for a salary. I'm in it for a big win, a big discovery. And I've got quite a few shares in the company. So what I really want to do is make investors money, because if investors making money, then I'm making money alongside of them. And there's pride too. To me, this could be a short run just to go out and find something big, and then I'll live on and go and do something else. But I truly, truly believe in the macro story that underpins our company. And I also think we've got among the best assets in the world for exploration. So look, we're having a lot of fun. I brought together a really impressive team for the size of company that we have. And I think the early successes and the pop you've seen in the stock market are just indications of the early success and frankly, the nod that we're getting from the investment community.
In closing, is there anything that you would like to say that maybe we didn't get a chance to touch upon?
No, I think you just got to follow the narrative. If you look at mining is not, in some ways, mining is a little bit like tech and biotech, right? You find the hot stock and you ride it and you stick with it, whether that be an Amazon or the pharma equivalent. And I'd like to think that we're turning FCC into that kind of a story. And you can see that we've hit a bit of a tipping point because the general press has picked us up. I was featured in a CBS News piece on Saturday.
Wow.
And I'm being interviewed at Financial Times on Monday. And so some of the broader financial press that don't typically follow mining companies are suddenly taking notice, and they're looking for expert commentary. And increasingly they're turning to FCC. So we don't take it for granted. I think we're in a sweet spot right now. We're going to keep trying to win the confidence of the market, and hopefully have continued success with that.
Well, Trent, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I know you're a very busy guy up there in Canada. Hopefully you'll come back on the show in 50 or 60 days, give us an update on First Cobalt. Again, First Cobalt Corp is the company that we've been highlighting today on Stock Day. They trade on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol FCC. They also trade on the OTCQB, ticker symbol FTSSF. Trent, thank you very much for coming on the show, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck.
Real pleasure. Thanks very much.
This program is entirely sponsored and produced by Uptick Newswire LLC, which is responsible for the content. The opinions and information provided on this program are those of the guests and those of the respective companies they represent, and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff or management of Uptick Newswire. Uptick Newswire encourages all listeners of this program to do their due diligence and research when determining investment strategies that will work for them, or to seek the assistance of an investment professional. The guests of this program may have paid for its distribution and are not directly affiliated with Uptick Newswire or this station.